Hey folks, it's Mike Callahan here from Four Leaf Properties. Want to talk about a provocative topic today. You ready? How can you lose your butt in manufactured housing? People ask me this question candidly all the time. So I'm going to spend about 3 minutes, go over 3 really critical factors, I think. The first is your strategy. So you got to be really certain in manufactured housing of your strategy for how you're going to increase your occupancy. Are you going to go the sales model? Are you going to go the rental model? Obviously in the rental model, it's much higher capital need up front. You're probably kind of shooting for a monthly price for your customer. You're not probably going to want to invest as much in that home. You may not even want to invest as much in the community because you don't have as much of a vested buyer, as opposed to the sales model where, of course, maybe the volume isn't quite as good, but you've got a stickier customer, lower capital need up front. It's kind of the long runway versus the short runway, but you better understand up front what that strategy is, because that's going to lead into number 2, which is really how are you going to get financing for your homes. It's not unusual in manufactured housing communities, particularly in smaller ones, to see as much home financing required to execute a model as there is money for the mortgage itself. If you buy 100 homes, that's $5 million, might be $6 or $7 million. So you have to understand where you're going to get your financing from, and you have to think through very thoughtfully about how you're going to come up with that capital, what's your exit strategy for that capital. We get lots of people from outside industries in manufactured housing who think this works like other industries do, and frankly, it doesn't. As a practical matter, if you're going to go out and borrow $5 or $10 or $15 million for financing for manufactured homes, you better be ready to sign on the dotted line. That's how it works, because the banks aren't going to let you make $15 or $20 million and not have some skin in the game. That said, look, a lot of people have made a lot of money doing this, and there's a well laid out, I think, track now upon which others can learn, but you have to be willing to understand what your model is up front, stick to it, have some steadfastness as you go through the process. Final issue is really your operating platform. I've advocated for a long time that I don't think it's possible to create an operating platform from scratch in manufactured housing in less than 3 years. That's not real. I'm not saying that really to be provocative. I mean that truthfully. I think it's a very complicated industry. I think depending upon where you're at in the country and what your cycles are for weather, what your cycles are for sales, you have to go through multiple years of those cycles to start to understand how important it is to have people to handle inventory control and pricing, operations out in the field, your community managers, all those people. But it's also those little nuanced positions, in maintenance and sales and sort of these little intricacies of the business that are really critical. And it takes a long time to build up experience, intellectual property, and the execution engine for that. So again, going back to the 3 components that I think are really critical, you've got to know your strategy, you've got to know where you're going to get your homes and your financing, and you've got to have a super efficient operating platform. So if you don't want to lose your butt in manufactured housing, you get those 3 right. There's a lot of value out there to create. Good luck. Thanks.